Cash, the wealthiest man in Haicheng, had been in a coma for 3 years, and Cherry had taken care of him for all that time. However, when he finally woke up, Cherry discovered a cheating text on his phone. His first love, his white moonlight, had returned to the country. His friends, who had looked down on her, laughed. The swan has come back. It's time to kick that ugly duck out. It was then that Cherry realized Cash had never loved her. She was just a pathetic joke. One night, Cash received a divorce agreement from Mrs. Hu, stating that the reason for the divorce was that the husband was incapable. Cash, with a dark expression, went to confront her, only to find Mrs. Hu once the ugly duck standing lazily in a long dress under the dazzling light, transformed into a stunning beauty. Cherry discovered that her husband, Cash, had cheated on her with a female college student. Today was Cash's birthday, and Cherry had prepared a feast early on. Just then, a notification chimed from Cash's phone at home. Cherry saw a message from the female college student. I bumped my head while getting the cake. It hurts so much. Woo woo woo. Along with the selfie, the photo didn't show her face, just her leg. The girl was wearing high white socks and black round-to-edge shoes, and her blue and white dress was pushed up, revealing a pair of beautifully long and slender legs. Her pale knees were indeed red from the bump, and the combination of the young, vibrant girl's body and the delicate text radiated a forbidden allure. I heard that successful company executives often prefer this kind of woman when choosing a mistress. Cherry tightly gripped her phone until her fingertips turned white. Ding! The female college student sent another message. Cash. Tonight I'm going to celebrate your birthday. It was Cash's birthday, and his mistress was planning a celebration for him. Cherry grabbed her bag and headed straight for Haicheng Hotel. She had to see for herself. She had to find out who this female college student was. When Cherry arrived at Haicheng Hotel, she wanted to go in, but at that moment, she spotted her parents, Carl and Cora. Surprised. Dad, Mom. Carl and Cora froze, exchanging a glance, their eyes flickering. Cherry, your sister is back in the country, and we brought her here. Celeste. Through the bright floor-to-ceiling window, Cherry saw her sister Celeste inside, and she froze. Celeste was wearing the same blue and white dress as the college student in the photo. It turned out that this college student was her sister, Celeste. Celeste was born a beauty, known as the Red Rose of Haicheng, and she had the most beautiful legs in the city. Many men had fallen at her feet. Now, her good sister was using those beautiful legs to seduce her brother-in-law. Cherry found it laughable. She turned to Carl and Cora. Looks like I'm the last to know, Carl awkwardly said. Cherry, Cash doesn't really like you, Cora added. Yeah, Cherry. Do you know how many women Haicheng have been thinking about Cash? Rather than letting other women take advantage of him, why not let your sister have him? Cherry clenched her fists. Dad and Mom, I'm also your daughter. She turned to leave. Cora suddenly called out from behind. Cherry, let me ask you, has Cash touched? Cherry paused. Carl's words were sharp. Cherry, don't think that we owe you anything. Cash and Celeste were widely recognized as a golden couple in the industry, but after Cash had the car accident and became a vegetable, we had no choice but to let you take her place. Cora disapprovingly looked Cherry up and down. Cherry, look at yourself. For the past 3 years of marriage, you've been nothing but a housewife revolving around your husband. For Celeste has become the lead ballet dancer. The swan and the ugly duck. What do you have to compare with Celeste? Hurry up and return Cash to Celeste. These words pierced Cherry's heart like knives, and she left with red-rimmed eyes. Cherry returned to the villa. Now dark. She had let Aunt Wu take the day off, and she was alone at home, with no lights on. The place cold and empty. Cherry sat alone at the dining table in the darkness. The table was set with cold dishes, including the cake she had made herself, which read, Happy Birthday, Husband. Cherry found it glaring. It was all like a joke, just like her life. Cash and Celeste were known as the golden couple in their circle. Everyone knew that the Red Rose, Celeste, was Cash's favorite. But a sudden car accident 3 years ago left Cash in a coma. and Celeste disappeared. At that time, the Kai family brought her back from the countryside, forcing her to marry the vegetated Cash. When she learned it was Cash, the Cash she had always loved, she willingly married him. After the marriage, Cash had been a vegetable for 3 years. During those 3 years, she had devotedly cared for him, without going out or socializing, solely focused on his recovery, living as a housewife revolving around him, eventually leading to his awakening. Cherry took out a lighter and lit the candles. The faint light cast her reflection in the mirror, showing her as a housewife in a dull, black and white dress, old-fashioned and lacking charm. Meanwhile, Celeste had blossomed into a vibrant, youthful, and beautiful lead ballet dancer over the past 3 years. She was the ugly duckling, Celeste was the swan. Now that Cash had awakened, he was once again with the swan, abandoning her. These 3 years were just self-deception. Cash didn't love her, but she loved Cash. They say that the one who falls in love first in a relationship is destined to lose. Today, Cash made her lose completely. Cherry's eyes brimmed with tears as she blew out the candles. The entire villa fell into boundless darkness once more. Just then, the bright headlights suddenly shone from outside. Cash's Rolls-Royce Phantom sped in and stopped on the lawn. If you need any changes or have more text to translate, feel free to let me know. Here's the translation. Cherry's heart fluttered. He was back. Soon, the villa's front door swung open, and a handsome, aristocratic figure strode in, bringing the cool night air within. Cash was home. The Huo family had always been a noble family in Haicheng, and Cash, as the heir, had shown astonishing business talent from a young age. He earned dual master's degrees from Harvard at 16 and later launched his first company on Wall Street, making a name for himself. After returning to China, he officially took over the Huo family business, becoming the wealthiest person in Haicheng. Cash walked in with long stride, his deep, magnetic voice carrying a hint of detachment. He reached out and switched on the wall lamp. The bright light made Cherry squint, and when she opened her eyes, dressed in a hand-tailored black suit, he was exceptionally handsome, his perfect proportions and inherent aloofness making him the subject of many socialite dreams in the night. "Today is your birthday," Cherry said. Looking at him, Cash's handsome face showed no emotion. He lazily glanced over at the dining table. "Don't waste your time next time. I don't care about these things." Cherry curved her lips into a smile and asked, "Is it that you don't care about these things? Or you don't want to celebrate with me?" Cash looked at her with little interest, as if he didn't want to waste time on her. "Think whatever you want." With that, he turned and headed upstairs. He had always been like this toward her. No matter what she did, she couldn't warm his heart. Cherry stood up and called out to his cold, handsome back, "It's your birthday today. I want to give you a birthday gift." Cash didn't stop or turn around. "No need." Cherry smiled. "Cash, let's get a divorce." Cash had already stepped onto the stairs but suddenly halted. He turned around, his deep black eyes fixed intently on her. Cherry was also looking at him, her own light yet firm as she repeated, "Let's get a divorce." "Cash, do you like this birthday gift?" Cash's handsome brows slightly furrowed. "Is it because I didn't celebrate your birthday that you want a divorce?" "Cherry, Celeste is back, right?" Mentioning Celeste made Cash's lips curl into a cold sneer. He stepped closer to her, his long legs closing the distance. "Are you bothered by Celeste?" As one of the youngest business moguls, Cash exuded a powerful aura of authority, wealth, and status. As he approached, Cherry instinctively took a step back, hard delicate back pressed against the wall. At that moment, Cash's figure loomed closer, his body blocking her between his solid chest and the wall. Cash lowered his beautiful eyelids, looking at her with a sarcastic smile. "Everyone in Haicheng knows that I'm going to marry Celeste. Did you really not know when you went to such lengths to become Mrs. Vuo? You didn't mind back then. So what are you being dramatic about now?" Cherry's face paled. He was going to marry Celeste. If he hadn't become a vegetable, how could she even think of marrying him? She would never forget the day he woke up, when he opened his eyes and saw her. The undisguised disappointment and indifference in his gaze were etched in her memory. After that, they always slept in separate rooms. He had never touched her. He loved Celeste. She knew all of this. But Cherry gazed deeply at Cash's handsome face, watching as his features slowly blended with those of the young boy she once knew. "Tat, do you really not remember me?" It turned out she was the only one still stuck in the past. Never mind. She would consider these 3 years as a tribute to her love for him. Cherry suppressed the bitterness and pain in her heart. "Cash, let's end this sexless marriage." Cash raised an eyebrow, his deep, pleasant voice rolling out a word. "Sex?" He raised his hand and grasped her delicate chin, his thumb brushing against her rosy lips, teasingly pressing down. "Is this why you want a divorce?" Cherry's fair face flushed bright red, like a ripe berry, juicy and enticing. That wasn't what she meant. Now, with his thumb, marked by a faint touch, pressing on her red lips, the malicious grinding left her shocked. She hadn't expected such a handsome and aristocratic man to have such a mature and frivolous side, playing with her lips. This was the first time Cash had looked at Cherry so closely. She usually wore black and white dresses, and a pair of oversized black-framed glasses made her look like an old woman. But up close, Cash found that her petite face was just right, and the features hidden behind those glasses were surprisingly delicate and unique. Complemented by her strikingly clear eyes, it was truly stunning. Her lips were soft. The spots where his fingers pressed lost their bright color but instantly bounced back, plump and tender, making one want to kiss them. Cash's eyes deepened. "I didn't expect Mrs. would have such strong desires. You want a man that badly?" Cherry raised her hand and slapped him across the face. Cash's handsome face turned sideways from the force of the hit. Cherry's fingers trembled with anger. Indeed, loving him too humbly would only lead to being trampled on. He actually had the audacity to humiliate her like this. Cherry said angrily, "I know you've always been infatuated with Celeste. Now I'm giving you what you want and returning the position of Mrs. Who out of her." Cash's face darkened as if a layer of frost had covered it. He so distinguished, had never been slapped in the face, never. Cash looked at her coldly. "Cherry, you think you can marry me whenever you want, then divorce me whenever you want?" Cherry laughed. "A toy? What?" Cash's expression shifted. Cherry, suppressing her heartache, said against her will, "You're just a toy I took from Celeste. Now that I'm tired of playing with you, I want to throw you away." Cash's face darkened to the point it could drip water. "Fine, Cherry. You really are something. If you want a divorce, then do it. Just don't come crying to me, begging for reconciliation." Cash stormed upstairs, slamming the study door with a deafening bang. Cherry felt as if all her strength had drained away. Her delicate body slowly sliding down the wall. She crouched on the carpet, wrapping her arms around herself. "Cash, I won't love you anymore." The next morning, Aunt pushed open the study door and walked in. Cash was sitting in his office chair. He was known for being a workaholic. Aunt Wu called out. Cash didn't even lift his eyelids. It was clear he was in a bad mood, and the temperature around him felt icy. Aunt Wu carefully placed the coffee beside him. "So, this is the coffee that Madam made for you." Cash paused for a moment while holding his pen, and his previously cold expression softened slightly. Was she trying to make peace? To be fair, Cherry was a good wife. She cooked according to his preferences, hand-washed his clothes, and took care of all his daily needs. Cash picked up the coffee and took a sip. It was her brew, and it was his favorite flavor. However, he was still angry. She had slapped him last night, and he planned to hold on to this anger for a long time. A cup of coffee wouldn't be enough to placate him. Cash asked, "Does Madam realize her mistake?" Aunt Wu looked at Cash with an odd expression. "Sir, Madam has left." Cash was taken aback and looked up at Aunt Wu. "Madam left with her suitcase. She asked me to give this to you before she left." Cash took the paper and opened it. The words divorce agreement jumped into his view. He was speechless. He thought she was trying to reconcile. Aunt Wu said, "So, Madam wants you to finish this cup of coffee and sign the divorce papers quickly." Cash glared at the coffee. "Pour it out. Dump it all out." "It was, sir. You just said you liked this cup of coffee." not daring to argue, and Wu hurriedly took the coffee and left. Cash's handsome face was clouded with anger. He quickly glanced at the divorce agreement. She wasn't asking for a single cent, leaving with nothing. Cash sneered. She really had backbone. How could a girl from the countryside live without money? 3 years ago, she had gone to great lengths to marry him. Wasn't it all for money? At that moment, Cash narrowed his eyes when he saw the reason for the divorce. Cherry had handwritten the reason. The husband was physically incapable, had erectile dysfunction, and could not fulfill marital obligation. Cash? His face darkened. That damned woman. Cash took out his phone and called Cherry directly. The call connected quickly, and Cherry's clear voice came through. Hello? Cash pressed his lips into a thin, cold line. Cherry. Cherry laughed lightly. Do you think I'll come back just because you told me to? We're getting a divorce. Why should I indulge you? Cash gritted his teeth. The reason for the divorce is here. I'm giving you one chance to rewrite it. Cherry's smile grew wider. Is what I wrote wrong? Cash? You've been awake for half a year now, but in that time, you haven't even held my hand. You were a vegetable for 3 years. Although your body is now healthy, I have reasonable doubts about your male functionality. You'd better see an old Chinese doctor about it. My best wishes for your divorce is that you quickly regain your manhood. Cash. The veins on his forehead throbbed. This woman was truly outrageous. Cherry, I will make you understand my strength sooner or later. Sorry, you don't have that chance anymore. Cherry. There were beeping sounds, and the call ended abruptly. In his rage, Cash hadn't had the time to blow up before he heard the busy tone. He muttered, Cherry. Meanwhile, Cherry had arrived at her good friend Cynthia's apartment. After hanging up the phone, Cynthia burst into laughter and gave Cherry a thumbs up. Cherry, that was great. Cash must be so furious he's about to spit blood. Cherry felt that in the past, she had loved him too submissively. Lovers should love themselves first, especially women. They must love themselves first, Cynthia said. 3 years ago, this Celeste ran away as soon as she heard Cash was in a coma. Who would have thought Cash really woke up and went looking for her? Men like that are better off divorced. Cherry unwrapped a white rabbit nil candy and popped it into her mouth. The sweet taste seemed to mask her inner bitterness. Little Fortune, this is the difference between love and indifference, right? Those who are loved are fearless. Those who are unloved are filled with trepidation. Cynthia glanced at Cherry, who had already eaten a pile of white rabbit milk candies. Cynthia pulled Cherry to her feet. Cherry, cheer up. When you let go of one tree, you'll find you have a whole forest. Tonight, I'll order 8 male models for your single celebration party. Cherry smiled and supported her forehead. At that moment, Cynthia reached out and moved Cherry's black-framed glasses, tossing them directly into the trash can. Cherry wanted to pick them up. My glasses. Cynthia stopped her. Cherry, you've done so much academic research that you like wearing those glasses. You should learn from Celeste and dress up beautifully. Cherry recalled her parents calling her the ugly duckling while Celeste was the swan. It seemed not only her parents thought that way. In Cash's eyes, she was also an ugly duckling. Cynthia dragged Cherry out. Let's go. I'll take you shopping, hair, nails, and clothes all in one go. I want Cash and the others to see just how beautiful you are. As they talked, Cynthia suddenly remembered something. By the way, Cherry, you really don't want Cash's money after the divorce? Cherry replied, I have my own money. Then is Cash's money for Celeste to spend? Celeste says thank you. What about the card Cash gave you? Cash had always been generous. He once gave Cherry a gold-plated black card, but she had never used it. Cherry pulled out the gold-plated black card from her bag and winked playfully. Then today, I'll spend. Then Cash can pay the bill. That night, at the 1996 bar. The 1996 bar had always been a hotspot in Haicheng, where various rich heirs and second-generation wealthy kids threw money around. Tonight, the DJ was spinning nonstop. Then the crowd was dancing wildly. In a luxurious private booth with dim lighting, Cash sat in the main seat of the sofa. He wore a black shirt and black trousers, with the sleeves rolled up, revealing his muscular forearms and a watch worth $1 million. His handsome, noble appearance drew the attention of women in the bar like a magnet. Next to Cash was his good brother Cade, the heir of the Gu family, along with a few other wealthy kids. Cade laughed loudly. Second brother? What are you saying? Cherry wants to divorce you. The other wealthy kids laughed along. Who doesn't know Cherry loves Cash to the bone? Even when he was a vegetable, she was eager to marry him. Now how could she bear to divorce? Let's make a bet on how long Cherry can hold out without coming to find Cash, Cade said. I bet Cherry can't even last until today. She'll definitely text my second brother later. With it, Cash's handsome facial features were dark and sharp, clearly indicating his displeasure. If you need further adjustments or more translations, just let me know. Here's the translation. He took out his phone and opened the WeChat chat window with Cherry. The last conversation had stopped at last night, where Cherry had sent a picture of a bowl of bone broth along with a message, honey, although your bone density is normal now, remember to come home early. Scrolling up, he saw a series of messages from Cherry. She sent him something every day. He had never replied, not even once. Today, it was quiet. She hadn't sent him any messages. Cash felt a sense of frustration in his heart. At that moment, Cade next to him immediately said, What did I tell you? Cherry sent a message to my brother. Ding, ding, ding. Several text messages came in one after another. The rich second-generation guys around them burst into laughter. We knew Cherry couldn't resist, but we didn't expect her to give in so easily. Cade urged. Bro, hurry and see what Cherry sent you. She must be crying and begging to reconcile. Cash's handsome brows furrowed. Did she really message him? If only he had known today would come. He wouldn't have acted like he did back then. Wasn't she very resolute this morning? Cash opened the message, and his expression quickly froze. Cade read it out loud. Dear EVIP user, your card ending in 975 has been charged 800 yuan at the colorful nail salon. Everyone looked puzzled. Cash scrolled up and saw charges of 2,000 yuan at the Kiani Eye Hair Salon. IT 6,000 yuan at Chanel, N240. Zara yuan at LV. There was no message about reconciliation. All there were notifications of her spending. Everyone was silent, feeling like Cherry had just slapped them from afar, making it awkward. Cash's face darkened as he slammed his phone down on the coffee table. He didn't care how much money Cherry had spent. What bothered him was that she went shopping right after their divorce. This woman was truly something else. The obedient woman who had clung to him for 3 years suddenly seemed to have grown fang. Cade said, Bro, what is Cherry doing? She actually went for a manicure, a haircut, and shopping. Is she trying to learn how to dress like Sister Celeste? Celeste is the red rose of our Haicheng, while Cherry is just a country bumpkin. No matter how much she learns, it's just imitation. A swan is a swan. And the ugly duckling is an ugly duckling is an ugly duckling. An ugly duckling can never become a swan. Everyone laughed at Cherry. Just then, a commotion broke out in the bar, and everyone's gaze shifted to one spot. Someone exclaimed, Look, a woman. Cherry had arrived. After finishing her shopping spree at the mall, Cynthia took Cherry straight to Night Me 96, where she planned to throw her a singles party. Cherry hadn't expected to run into Cash and the others here, and she naturally heard their mocking laughter. Cherry recognized Cade and his friends in the luxurious booth. They hung out in the same circle as Cash. Cade was Cash's close buddy, and back in the day, Cash and Celeste's passionate romance was well known among them. They all liked Celeste, and Cade even called her sister. For over 3 years, Cherry had never been able to fit into their circle. They never welcomed her. The labels they put on her were all derogatory and desperate: substitute bride, the ugly duckling, a country bumpkin. If a man doesn't love you, his friends won't respect you either. Cynthia was furious and rolled up her sleeves, ready to confront them. I'm going to tear these people apart. Cherry grabbed Cynthia's arm, saying, Xiaofu, forget it. We've already divorced. There's no need to get worked up over these people. Looking at Cherry's calm demeanor, Cynthia forced herself to suppress her anger. At that moment, more gazes turned toward Cherry, calling her woman. Cynthia's mood lightened. Cherry, Let's go have that singles party. Cynthia led Cherry to another luxurious booth, waving her hand. Bring all the male models from 1996 over here. In this booth, the rich second-generation guys continued to mock Cherry. But suddenly, they felt a cold, piercing gaze land on them. They looked up to see Cash lazily glancing at them from the main seat. His expression was cold, displeased, and watchful. The smiles of the rich second-generation guys' friends, and they immediately fell silent. No longer daring to speak of Cherry, Cade looked at Cash. Although his brother had never looked at Cherry directly, she had indeed taken care of him diligently for 3 years. At this moment, the surrounding commotion grew louder. What a beautiful woman! A woman? Where? Cade followed the crowd's gaze forward and was instantly stunned. Whoop. The rich second-generation guys around him widened their eyes. When did such a woman come to Haicheng? How have we never seen her before? Cade pulled on Cash. Bro, you have to see this woman. Cash was no stranger to women. He had seen all types and didn't care to look. But Cherry's booth was right across from him. Cash looked up and saw Cherry. Cherry had taken off her black framed glasses. Her palm-sized face was as white and soft as snow, with a superior bone structure and an ethereal aura. Her long black hair cascaded elegantly over her shoulders, making her a striking beauty. Cash glanced at her and paused for 2 seconds. Cade excitedly asked, Bro, what do you think of that woman? The other rich second-generation guys chimed in. Cash probably doesn't think she's anything special. He likes soft beauties like Celeste, not this cool and aloof type. Look at her legs. They're just as stunning as Celeste. Cherry was wearing a short, chic dress that broke away from her conservative style, revealing her legs for the first time. Her legs were perfectly proportioned. They were legs that would inspire all sorts of fantasies in a man just as impressive as Celeste. Here's the translation, Wuma called out. Sir. Cash didn't even lift his eyelids. It was clear he was in a bad mood, his body radiating an icy chill. Wuma cautiously placed the coffee beside him. So, this is the coffee that Madam made for you. Cash paused with the pen in his hand. His previously cold expressions softened slightly. Was she trying to make peace? To be fair, Cherry was a good wife. She cooked according to his preferences, hand-washed his clothes, and took care of all his needs. Cash picked up the coffee and took a sip. It was the coffee she made, and it was his favorite flavor. However, she slapped him last night, and he intended to be mad for a long time. No cup of coffee could soothe that. Cash asked, did the madam realize her mistake? Saying, Madam has left. Cash was taken aback and looked up at Wuma. She took out something. Sir, Madam left with her suitcase. This is what she asked me to give you before she left. Cash took the paper and opened it, and the words divorce agreement jumped out at him. Cash was speechless. He thought she was trying to make peace. Wuma added, Sir, Madam wants you to drink this cup of coffee and quickly sign the divorce. Cash glared at the coffee, shouting, Spill it. Pour it all out. Wuma said, Sir, you liked this coffee just now. Why don't you like it now? Not daring to speak further, Wuma quickly left with the coffee. Cash's handsome face was dark with anger. He quickly glanced at the divorce agreement. She didn't want a dime and was leaving with nothing. Cash sneered. She truly had some backbone. How could a girl from the countryside live without money? 3 years ago, she had gone to great lengths to marry him. Wasn't it all for money? Just then, Cash narrowed his eyes because he saw the reason for the divorce. Cherry had handwritten the reason. The male party is physically incapable, has sexual dysfunction, and cannot fulfill marital obligations. Cash was speechless, his face turning completely dark. This damn woman. Cash took out his phone and called Cherry directly. The call connected quickly, and Cherry's clear voice came through. Hello. Cash pressed his lips into a tight line, saying, Cherry, get back here right now. Cherry laughed. Just because you want me to come back. We're a divorce now. Who's going to pamper you? Cash gritted his teeth. The reason for divorce here. I'm giving you one chance to rewrite it. Cherry's smile widened. Is what I wrote wrong? Cash, you've been awake for half a year, but you haven't even held my hand. You were in a vegetative state for 3 years, And although your body is now healthy, I have reasonable doubts about your male function. You're no longer capable. Hurry up and see an old Chinese doctor. My best divorce blessing for you is to wish you regain your manly vigor soon. Cat. The veins on his forehead were throbbing. This woman had truly gone too far. Cherry, I will make you realize my power sooner or later. You no longer have that opportunity. Beep, beep. The call was abruptly cut off. Furious, Cash hadn't even had the chance to explode before he heard the busy tone on the other end. He thought, Cherry. Cherry had already arrived at her best friend Cynthia's apartment, after hanging up the phone. Cynthia burst into laughter and quickly gave a thumbs up. Cherry. That was great. Cash must be furious now. Cherry felt that she had loved too humbly in the past. One must first love oneself, especially for women. They must prioritize self-love. Cynthia said, 3 years ago, when Celeste found out that Cash had become a vegetable after the car accident. She left immediately. Who would have thought that Cash would wake up and look for her? Good riddance to such a man. Cherry unwrapped a big white rabbit milk candy and popped it in her mouth. The sweet taste seemed to mask the bitterness in her heart. This is the difference between love and indifference. Those who are loved feel invincible, while those who are unloved feel uneasy. Cynthia glanced at Cherry, who had already eaten a pile of big white rabbit milk candies. Cynthia stood up, pulling Cherry with her. Cherry, cheer up. You'll discover you have a hole for it. Tonight, I'm booking 8 male models for a single woman party. Cherry laughed, holding her forehead. At that moment, Cynthia reached over and removed Cherry's black-rimmed glasses from her face, tossing them directly into the trash. Cherry tried to retrieve them, saying. Cynthia stopped her. Cherry, you've done too much academic research and have gotten used to wearing these glasses. You should learn from Celeste and dress yourself up beautifully. Cherry recalled her parents saying she was the ugly duckling, while Celeste was the beautiful swan. Perhaps not only her parents thought the, in Cash's eye, she might also be an ugly duckling. Cynthia pulled Cherry out the door. Let's go, I'll take you shopping. Get your hair and nails done. And buy some clothes. I want Cash and the others to see just how beautiful you are. Suddenly, Cynthia remembered something. By the way, Cherry, you really don't want Cash's money after the divorce? Cherry replied. I have my own money. Then are you leaving Cash's money for Celeste to spend? Celeste will thank you. What about the card Cash gave you? Cash had always been generous and had given Cherry a gold black card, but she had never used it. Cherry took out the gold black card from her bag and playfully winked. Then I'll spend today. Cash will foot the bill. That evening, at the 1996 bar. The 1996 bar had always been a paradise for lavish spending in Haicheng, where various young heirs and rich second-generation kids threw money around. That night, the DJ was playing continuously, and people were dancing wildly. In a dimly lit luxurious booth, Cash sat at the main seat of the sofa. Tonight he wore a black shirt and black trousers, revealing his muscular forearms and the multi-million-dollar steel watch on his wrist. His handsome and noble demeanor drew women's glances like a magnet throughout the bar. Beside Cash was his good brother Cade, the heir of the Gu family, along with several other rich second-generation companions. Cade laughed heartily. Second brother? What are you saying? Cherry wants to divorce you? The other rich second-generation kids also laughed. She was eager to marry him even when he was a vegetable. How could she possibly want a divorce now? Let's bet how many days Cherry can resist coming back to Cash. Cade said, I bet Cherry won't even last today. She'll send a message to my second brother soon. Cash's handsome facial features were dark and sharp, clearly in a bad mood. This translation maintains the tone and context of the original text. Cash immediately released her and strode over to Celeste. He looked at her with his handsome eye, filled with a gentleness Cherry had never seen before. You're here? Celeste nodded, then glanced at Cherry. Who is this? Celeste didn't recognize Cherry at once, but Cherry would never forget Celeste. In fact, Cherry and Celeste were half-sisters. Carl is not Cherry's biological father, but her stepfather. Cherry had a happy family. Her father, Haicheng, and her mother, Cora, were deeply respectful of each other. Her father loved her dearly and would lift her high every day, saying, "My Cherry must be happy." Then one day, her father suddenly passed away. Her father's brother's brother, Coral, moved in with his daughter Celeste, and Cherry's mother became Celeste's mother. Her mother remarried her second uncle. Her mother loved Celeste but no longer cared for her. When Celeste scored 99 on a test, and Cherry scored 100, her mother would hit her hand with a ruler and scold her. "Can't you just let your sister win? Why do you have to score higher than her?" When Celeste got sick and underwent chemotherapy, losing her hair, she cried about how ugly she had become. Her mother immediately shaved Cherry's head too, saying, "Then she won't cry anymore." Every night, her mother, Celeste, and Carl slept together, playing and laughing, while Cherry stood outside their door alone, holding the doll her father had bought for her, tears streaming down her face. Well, Cherry's scared. Later, Celeste finally began to call her mother Mom, and her mother was so happy. But Celeste said, "A mother can only have one daughter." It rained heavily one day when her mother took her to the countryside and abandoned her there. Little Cherry chased after the car, crying uncontrollably. "Don't leave Cherry. Cherry will be good. Cherry will let her sister win. Ma, hug me. Cherry is scared." Little Cherry, holding her doll, fell heavily into a muddy puddle. Watching her mother's car disappear from her sight, Cherry would never forget Celeste. At this moment, Kate ran over. "Sister Celeste. This is your sister Cherry." Celeste was shocked. "You are Cherry?" Cherry knew that Celeste had always looked down on her. As a child, she'd been Celeste's defeated opponent, while Celeste had excelled all the way, eventually dating a wealthy heir caste and growing up amidst flowers and affection, making her proud and arrogant. Kate was once again amazed by Cherry's ethereal beauty and whispered, "I didn't expect Cherry to be so beautiful." Celeste had already forgotten her childhood memories because she had never looked at her unloved sister. But wasn't this sister just a country bumpkin who had returned? Celeste walked over to Cherry, glanced at her, and her eyes were filled with pride. "Cherry, I didn't expect you to imitate my dressing style," Cherry replied. "As long as you're happy." Cherry straightened her delicate back, smiled, and said nothing. The light in the corridor illuminated her exquisite, otherworldly face like a pearl glowing in the dark. She was no longer that little Cherry from years ago. Celeste said, "Cherry, I heard you and Cash are getting divorced. Can't you live without a man? Coming to the bar to order male models to indulge yourself? If I were you, I would find a job." As she spoke, Celeste glanced at Cash, saying condescending, "Cash, after all, Cherry has taken care of you for so long. Even if she was just an Annie, you should help her find a job." Cash's gaze fell on Cherry's face. Kate said, "Sister Celeste, nowadays you need a degree to find a job. What's Cherry's education level?" Celeste seemed to remember something amusing and raised her chin high, laughing. "Cherry dropped out of school at 16. Kate was shocked. 16? The reason people in this circle respected Celeste was not just because of her beauty, but also because she had been outstanding in her studies since childhood, attending a prestigious university. There was no one in the entire elite circle of Haicheng who could compare to her. She was a perfect match for Cash. Any girl who relied solely on beauty was doomed. Beauty combined with education was a winning hand, especially among the upper class, where education was highly valued. Kate's previously mild regard for Cherry vanished, replaced by disdain. "Cherry." Cherry looked at the proud Celeste and smiled indifferently. "Yeah, I did drop out at 16. Kate responded. "My second brother also dropped out at 16, but he is a true prodigy. Graduated with dual master's degrees from Harvard at 16. Making history. While you dropped out at 16 without even a high school diploma." Kate laughed loudly, mocking her. Celeste looked down at Cherry, looking down on her. Cash, tall and handsome, stood there, and the light in the corridor illuminated his cold, handsome face as he gazed at Cherry. For the past 3 years, Cherry had been a housewife, revolving around him. So it was normal that she lacked an education. Cherry didn't show any embarrassment or fear. Instead, her clear, bright eyes looked at him, and she smiled gracefully, saying, "Yeah. What a coincidence. What a coincidence indeed." For some unknown reason, Cash suddenly felt a stir in his heart. He noticed that Cherry's eyes were genuinely beautiful, filled with spirit and life. Cherry. At this moment, Cynthia ran over, her face angry as she saw Celeste. "Celeste, are you bullying Cherry again?" Celeste proudly replied, "We want to help her find a job." Cynthia was taken aback. "You're helping Cherry find a job?" Celeste continued to offer generously. Yeah. Although Cherry has no qualifications or education, we'll do our best to help her find a good job." Cynthia was speechless and couldn't help but laugh in anger. "Do you know who Cherry is?" "Cherry is." Cherry quickly pulled Cynthia to stop her. "Xiao Fu, let's go." Cynthia didn't say anything further, but she cast a glance at Celeste, as if looking at a clown. "You'll have your moment to be slapped in the face." Cynthia took Cherry and left. Kate angrily said, "What does this Cherry mean? A person who dropped out at 16 still has the audacity to act so arrogantly. If I were her, I would feel ashamed to face people." Celeste wasn't angry. She had never really looked at Cherry, feeling that Cherry didn't even qualify to be her rival. Getting angry at Cherry would only lower her own status. Celeste looked at Kate and smiled. "Kate, forget it. Ignorance is bliss," Kate responded. "Second brother, hurry up and divorce Cherry. She doesn't deserve you." Cash's handsome face showed no sign of emotion as he turned to Celeste. "Shall we go?" Celeste nodded. "Okay." Celeste and Kate followed Cash out of the bar. As they exited, a voice called out, "Cash?" Cash looked up and saw a familiar face. It was Chad, the principal of Harvard University. Cash stepped forward. "Chad, what brings you to Haicheng?" Celeste held Chad in high regard. Although she had always excelled academically, she had not yet qualified to attend the prestigious Harvard. Chad smiled. "Cash, I'm in Haicheng for a seminar. Your junior from Harvard is also here." Cash paused. "Wait, junior?" Chad replied. "Yeah, we have two legends at Harvard. The first is you, and the second is your junior. She, like you, earned dual degrees at 16. So you don't know her?" Cade, Bintry, exclaimed. "My second brother's junior is that impressive? Who's better between them?" Chad looked at Cash and commented, "They're evenly matched." Cash raised his eyebrows. He hadn't met a girl who was his equal yet. Celeste, hearing for the first time about Cash's equally talented junior, felt a pang of jealousy. Who is this junior? Beep's sense of rivalry and jealousy washed over her. Chad took out his phone. "Cash, I'll send you this junior's WeChat contact. You should add her when you have the time. He's also an Haicheng, and you should take care of her as her senior." Cash nodded. "Okay." Chad left. NK urged, "Second brother, hurry up and add this junior on WeChat. I want to see what she looks like." Cash took out his phone and opened the WeChat contact for his junior. The background was white. Cade asked, "What does this W mean?" Cash didn't know either. He clicked to add her as a friend. Noting Cash in the remarks, a request was still pending verification. Cade was excited. "Second brother, once you add this junior, pass her on to me. I admire her so much." Celeste, seeing that they were both captivated by this junior, felt displeased. Just then, a Rolls-Royce luxury business car pulled up, driven by Cash's personal secretary, Haicheng. Celeste immediately ended this little diversion. "Cash, the car is here. Let's get in," Cade said. "Second brother." "Sister Celeste. Goodbye." The Rolls-Royce glided smoothly down the road. In the quiet and luxurious interior, Xiao respectfully asked through the rearview mirror, "President, where are we headed?" Cash replied, "To the company." Celeste looked at Cash. The city's neon lights spilling through the gleaming car windows onto his handsome face. like a black and white film, noble and mysterious. Celeste's eyes sparkled with affection. Cat, you're not thinking about getting involved with her now that she's more attractive, are you? Cash glanced at Celeste. His lazy voice indifferent. She's my wife. It's normal if something happens between us. Didn't you push her towards me? Celeste knew he was still blaming her for leaving him 3 years ago when he was in a vegetative state and letting Cherry marry him instead. Celeste tried to explain. Cash, Cherry insisted on marrying you. I could only let her have you. Cash retorted. Do you even believe that yourself? Celeste fell silent. She bit her ruby red lip, frustrated, and said, 3 years ago, I did abandon you. If you mind that, then let's break up. Saying that, Celeste turned to Xiao. Secretary Xiao, stop the car. Celeste wanted to get out, but Cash's long fingers reached out, grabbing her delicate wrist and pulling her back into his solid chest. A helpless yet indulgent voice came from above. You're just taking advantage of my affection for you. Celeste smiled, her heart brimming with sweetness. She relaxed against Cash's chest and tilted her beautiful face up to him. I knew you wouldn't want to let me go. As Haicheng's richest man, Cash was handsome, noble, and powerful enough to turn the tide. He fulfilled all her fantasies about men. But when he became a vegetable after the car accident 3 years ago, the doctors said he would never wake up. How could she waste her youthful years on him? So, she escaped. Who would have thought that after just 3 years, with Cherry marrying him, Cash woke up? She didn't even know how Cash had awakened. Could it be that Cherry's fate was just right? The doctors said it was a medical miracle. So, she came back. She knew Cash loved her and wouldn't let her go. Cash looked at Celeste's beautiful face. If it weren't for that time, could I spoil you like this? Mentioning that time, Celeste froze for a moment, guilt flashing in her eyes. She quickly changed the topic. Have you slept with Cherry? Cash lowered his eyes. Why would I sleep with her when I can sleep with you? She knew he hadn't slept with Cherry. It was a question meant to provoke. He picked up her train of thought. Teasingly, Celeste liked his current demeanor, the charm of a mature man, making her blush with just one sentence. This aloof and restrained man made her want to strip him of his clothes to see how much desire he held. Celeste turned over boldly, straddling his strong waist, wrapping her arms around his neck, her red lips brushing against his thin ones, teasingly whispering, Do you want to sleep with me? Xiao, having been with Cash for several years, shrewdly raised the partition between the front and back seats. Cash looked at Celeste and remained silent. Celeste wore a strapless red dress, and in her straddling position. The hem of her dress hiked up, revealing her beautiful leg. Now, these legs, the most beautiful in Haicheng, were pale and graceful, wrapped around the man's black trousers. Sensual and alluring. Celeste tightened her legs, clamping her slender thighs around his narrow waist. Speak up. Do you want to sleep with me? If he just said he wanted to, they could sleep together right now. Cash understood what she meant. But suddenly, Cash's mind flashed back to Cherry's legs at the bar. Cherry's legs were perfectly proportioned and delicate. She'd asked him which he preferred, her legs or Celeste. Cash didn't know why he thought of Cherry at that moment. When Cherry lifted her leg, the sparkling crystal chain of her high heels dangled from her delicate ankle, swaying as she used her ears to tease his leg, asking him if Celeste's legs had ever wrapped around his waist. Cash pulled her hands from around his neck. I'm still married. Celeste asked. So what? Cash replied. I have no intention of cheating on my wife. Celeste fell silent. All the flirtation dissipated. Cash ended everything. Celeste, disappointed, climbed down from his thigh. She had her pride. She would only give him what he wanted if he truly desired it. Celeste said. Cash? When are you and Cherry getting divorced? Cash looked out the window. It was fine for Cherry to take the initiative to file for divorce, as he was planning to do the same. Cash replied coolly. Soon, Cherry and Cynthia returned to the apartment, and Cherry lay on her soft bed. After indulging herself tonight, her life was about to get back on track. Cherry took out her phone and opened WeChat. She had two WeChat accounts. For the past 3 years, she had been using the Cherry account, But now that account was officially offline, Cherry logged into her other WeChat account. As soon as she entered, a flurry of notifications appeared from the group chat A Loving Family. Cherry opened it, and Master Brother said, "Wow, well, my little junior sister is finally online." Second brother added, "Little junior sister." Third brother chimed in, "Come here for a hug." Little junior sister, Master Brother, second brother, and third brother were all showering her with virtual flowers, celebrating her return. Master Brother said, 3 years ago, when our little junior sister first fell in love, insisting on descending the mountain to find a man to play with. So how was it, little junior sister? Was it fun with men? Cherry replied, "Not fun." Second brother said, "Looks like our little junior sister has had a breakup." Third brother teased, "So, there are actually people our little junior sister can't handle." Master Brother added, "Stop making fun of her. Let's just say these 3 years were her experience in the world of love." "Sorry, it's just too funny. I need to laugh for a bit." But Cherry thought she really wanted to kick these 3 out of the group chat. With a wave of her hands, she changed the group name from A Loving Family to A Hindering Family. At this point, third brother, Xiao Yi, got back to the main topic. "Little junior sister, it's time for you to come out. The appointments for surgeries are fully booked. I scheduled a complicated heart surgery for you. You need to go to the traditional Chinese medicine hospital tomorrow." Cherry gave an okay gesture. After exiting the group chats, Cherry suddenly noticed a friend request. She clicked on it and was surprised to find it was from Cash. Cash wanted to add her as a WeChat friend. This was somewhat ironic. For the past 3 years, she had used the Cherry WeChat to send him messages daily, and he hadn't replied to a single one. Now that she was online on another WeChat account, he was actively adding her as a friend, once looked down upon. Now he was reaching out to her. Cherry's slender white fingers tapped the keys. Huo Group. Huo Group was a landmark building in Haicheng, controlling the economic lifeblood of the entire city. It towered into the clouds, looking even more magnificent at night. After dropping Celeste off at home, Cash went to his office, reviewing documents. The pen in his hand swiftly signed his name Cash at the bottom of the page with a strong, confident stroke. The gleaming floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the countless lights of the city, serving as a backdrop to this man. Just then, his phone rang with a WeChat notification. Cash picked up his phone and opened WeChat. His talented junior sister had replied to him. When he saw the response, Cash was momentarily stunned, then smirked, sneering at the screen. His talented junior sister had directly rejected his friend request. At this moment, Secretary Xiao walked in with a cup of coffee. He saw his boss's phone and was shocked. "What? Someone actually rejected the president's friend request? What is this? You won't believe it." Moment. Secretary Xiao said, "President, your talented junior sister is very special." Cash scoffed. "Yeah. She was the first person to reject him. If she didn't want to add him, so be it." Cash took a sip of coffee and quickly frowned. Secretary Xiao asked, "President, is the coffee not to your taste? I can make you another cup." Cash suddenly missed the coffee that Cherry used to make for him. That was the only one he truly enjoyed. Cash said expressionlessly, "Issue a check with 8 yuan. That's my divorce compensation for Cherry." He didn't believe a word of it. A girl from the countryside who dropped out of school at 16, how could she make money? She was just playing hard to get, wanting more money. This 8 euro check was essentially a buyout for the 3 years of her life. No one owed anyone anything from now on. Secretary Zhang nodded. "President." At that moment, Secretary Xiao's phone rang. He received a call. After answering, he exclaimed, "President, good news. Drive C has accepted our order. Drive C has agreed to perform the heart surgery for Miss Celeste." C was a legendary doctor with outstanding skill. The top tycoons lined up to seek her treatment. However, 3 years ago, Drive C suddenly disappeared, and no one knew where she had gone. Now, 3 years later, Drive? She had returned. Celeste had heart disease since childhood. She'd been hospitalized for treatment before, but the illness didn't get better. Now, Cash had successfully arranged for Drive. See to treat Celeste using his financial power. The frown on Cash's brow finally eased, and he smiled. Celeste was going to be saved. The next day, Cherry arrived at the traditional Chinese medicine hospital. Just then, a group of well-trained bodyguards in black suddenly poured in, creating a grand path, pushing Cherry and the onlookers aside. Two girls next to her were chatting. "Don't you know? Our city's Red Rose, Celeste, who is the principal dancer of the ballet, felt unwell during her performance today. Cash brought her here to see a doctor. Cashing out. No wonder there's such a big commotion." Cherry trembled. She didn't expect to run into Cash and Celeste at the traditional Chinese medicine hospital today. Look, Cash and Celeste are here." Cherry looked up to see Cash's handsome and tall figure entering her view, dressed in a custom-made black suit, exuding a noble aura. Celeste was in his arms, cradled horizontally. Several doctors and nurses from the hospital surrounded him, treating him and Celeste like the center of attention. "Cash? This way please." Cash Carey, Celeste strode away. The nearby girls were excited. "What? Cash is so handsome. He's the real domineering CEO. Celeste is fair and beautiful, with an excellent dancing demeanor. She really is a perfect match for Cash. Handsome, noble CEO versus delicate beauty from the dance department. Oh my, I can't believe I'm witnessing someone else's love story." Cherry and Cash were in a hidden marriage, known only to a few in their circle, while everyone else was focused on Cash and Celeste. Cherry watched as Cash disappeared from view. He hadn't seen her just now. His eyes were only for Celeste. She was just a supporting character in their love story. Cherry composed herself and followed the appointment number in her phone to find VIP room 109. Soon, she saw Cash and Celeste inside, along with Carl and Cora. Celeste was already sitting on a hospital bed, with Carl and Cora on either side of her, just like when they were young, pampering her like a little princess. Carl said happily. "Celeste, that's great. Cash has invited Drive. See to treat you." Cora cried tears of joy. "My Celeste has really suffered. Now it's all better. Once Drive cures your heart condition, you'll be a healthy person and can happily marry Cash to become his guide." Celeste sweetly smiled at Cash. Cash, tall and long-legged, reached out to gently pat her head. The scene of the family of four was warm and beautiful. Cherry was frozen outside the door. She really hadn't expected the world to be so small. The heart surgery that her senior brother arranged for her was actually for Celeste. The warm and beautiful scene inside made her eyes sting. At that moment, Cash seemed to sense something. He turned his head, and his deep and dangerous narrowed gaze landed directly on her face. Cherry was caught off guard, colliding with his gaze. Cash narrowed his eyes and immediately stepped forward, standing in front of Cherry. "Cherry, what are you doing here?" Cherry replied. Cash's voice turned icy. "Cherry, are you following me?" Cherry replied. "I didn't." Carl and Cora both noticed Cherry's presence. Cora scolded. "Cherry, why are you here? Today we have the renowned Drive. See to treat your sister." "Why are you here? To cause trouble." Carl's expression was also displeased. "Cherry, hurry and leave." Celeste didn't say anything, her expression haughty and bright. At this moment, Cash's tall and proud figure closed in, gripping Cherry's delicate arm coldly. "Cherry, are you done with your little game? Is stalking part of it now? Stop wasting my time and leave." Everyone welcomed her arrival, urging her to go. Cherry felt it was ridiculous. Her cold eyes swept over Cora, Celeste, and Carl. Then she forcefully pulled her delicate arm from Cash's grip, smiling lightly. "Okay, I'll go. Remember, it's you who are driving me away." Cherry turned to leave. But soon, Cherry turned back, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Cash, do you know why I came to the hospital today?" Cash looked at her delicate, pale face, which was covered in a fine layer of fuzz, soft and glistening, enhancing her beauty. Cash's expression remained cold, clearly uninterested. His voice frosted. Cherry, if this keeps up, it's going to get annoying. Cherry suddenly stepped forward, smiling brightly at him. I came to find you a Western doctor. With that, Cherry took out a small card and handed it to Cash. Cash looked down at the small, yellowing card, which resembled something someone had stealthily slipped through a crack in the door. The card read, specializes in treating various forms of impotent, premature ejaculation, and infertility, helping you regain the joy of being a man. A crack appeared on Cash's calm and handsome face. Cherry placed the small card into his suit pocket. Celeste is sick, but Cash is not. You all take good care of yourselves. After saying that, Cherry turned and left. Cash's large hand, which had been hanging by his side, suddenly clenched into a fist. He found that this woman always had a way of making him angry. At that moment, Celeste spoke up. Cash, it's fine. Don't argue with Cherry. Cora nodded. Right, why hasn't Drive? C arrived yet? Mentioning Drive, C made everyone tense. Drive? C was Celeste's hope. Cash looked down at his watch. The scheduled time had already passed, but the Drive, C had yet to arrive. At this time, medical staff walked in. Cat, Celeste, Carl, and Cora's eyes lit up. Has Drive, C arrived? The medical staff looked at Cash. Cash, Dr. C is already here. What? Cash looked outside. He didn't see anyone else, only a slender figure Cherry. Cherry turned a corner and disappeared. Cash frowned. I didn't see Drive. C, the medical staff replied. Drive, C came on left. Why? Celeste, Carl, and Cora's expressions changed drastically. Why did Drive, C leave? She hasn't treated Celeste yet. The medical staff apologized. Sorry. Drive, C will not be treating Miss Celeste anymore. Celeste's bright face turned completely pale. C isn't going to save me. The earlier joy was extinguished like a bucket of cold water, leaving everyone stunned. Celeste broke down. Why won't Drive, C save me? Why? Carl and Cora quickly held Celeste, soothing her gently. Celeste, don't get too excited. We'll find a way to invite Drive, C again. You'll be fine. Cash's handsome features suddenly turned sharp as he gazed at the empty corridor. Cold and dangerous. Outside the hospital, Cherry was stopped by someone calling her name. Cherry. Cherry paused and slowly turned around. It was Cora, who had chased her out. Cora approached Cherry and handed her something. Cherry, this is for you. Cherry glanced down. It was a check for $20,000. Cora said, Cherry, Cash doesn't like you. You shouldn't keep clinging to him. Let him go back to your sister. Why can't you give your sister a break? Hurry and divorce Cash. Then take this money back to the countryside to live your life. Cherry found it ironic. If she hadn't secretly done a DNA paternity test for Cora and Celeste, she would have doubted that Celeste was her biological daughter. Unfortunately, she wasn't at all. But she only loved Celeste and not her biological daughter. Cherry knew Cora was infatuated with Carl, hence her affection for Celeste. Cherry's clear eyes looked at Cora as she smirked. Is the position of Mrs. H worth only this much money? Or do you think I'm only worth this much in your eyes? Cora was taken aback and then defended herself. Cherry, Mom is doing this for your own good. This place isn't suitable for you, Mom. The unfamiliar title made Cherry smile. You sent me to the countryside once, and now you want to send me a second time. Cherry didn't look at her anymore. She got into a taxi and left. Inside the taxi, Cherry sat in the back seat. She took a piece of white rabbit milk candy from her bag, gently unwrapped it, and put the milk candy in her mouth. If you need any adjustments or have further requests, feel free to ask. Here's the English translation. The driver glanced at the girl in the rearview mirror. She wore a dress, exuding a calm and ethereal aura, the kind that only a strong person could project. However, upon closer inspection, her skin was pale to the point of translucent, and her body beneath the dress was slender, appearing fragile and easily breakable. The driver also had a daughter of this age. So he smiled and said, "Little girl, do you really love candy that much?" Cherry looked up, and the gentle breeze outside blew her hair across her face. She replied softly with a light smile, "A little candy makes it less bitter." Cora froze in play, watching Cherry leave in the car. Just then, someone approached. "Mrs. Kai." Cora turned around to see Director Cameron from the Chinese Medicine Hospital. "Director Cameron, hello. You have the best connections. Is there any way you can ask Dr. C to treat my daughter Celeste?" Cameron replied. "Mrs. Ka, I happen to know Dr. C and can recommend you." Cora was overjoyed. "Really? Thank you, Director Cameron." At that moment, Director Cameron looked in the direction Cherry had gone, and a sly smile slowly crept onto his face beneath his clean white coat. "Mrs. Ka, is that your eldest daughter who just returned from the countryside? I didn't expect your daughter to be so beautiful. I almost thought I saw a woman." Cora's smile faded. At the Kai family villa, as night fell, Cora sat on the living room sofa in a silk nightgown waiting for Carl. In her youth, she was a beautiful Jiangnan beauty, adored by Kai Jianghua, who pampered her so much that she never had to lift a finger. Later, she remarried Carl, who inherited Kai Jianghua's business and expanded it even further, allowing her to become a wealthy lady. Over the years, she focused on her appearance, and she still retained her charm. Just then, the villa door opened, and the maid let Carl in. Cora immediately lit up with joy, stepping forward to welcome him and taking off his jacket. "Honey, why are you home so late?" Unlike Kai Jianghua, who was honest and clumsy, Carl was handsome and charming in his youth. Over the years, he had become the company president, and his commanding presence had only grown, making Cora smitten. Carl replied, "I had a social event tonight." Cora suddenly caught a whiff of the perfume on his suit. One she recognized well. It was from the new secretary he had hired. Cora said angrily, "Honey, have you been with that secretary again?" Carl frowned, annoyed. "Cora, why are you being paranoid again? Dr. C wouldn't treat Celeste, and she's been in a bad mood. You should focus on cheering Celeste up." "I'm tired. I'm going upstairs to rest." Carl attempted to leave for the stairs. Cora suddenly said, "I have a way to get Dr. C." Carl paused, immediately turning back. He wrapped his arms around Cora's shoulders. "Lan, you're amazing. You never let me down. Lan, you're my treasure." Carl knew how to flatter women, fulfilling Cora's inherent Jiangnan feminine charm. Cora leaned against Carl, giving him a flirtatious glance. "I have one condition. You must fire that secretary." Carl replied, "No problem. I'll fire her tomorrow." With that, Carl picked Cora up in a sideways embrace. Cora felt her body go soft. "Didn't you just say you would iron?" Cora's nightgown opened, revealing her sexy lace lingerie. Carl teasingly remarked, "Look at you. How could I resist?" Cora playfully hit, "You're so naughty." Carl laughed frivolously. "Don't you like it?" The next day, Cherry received a call from Cora while at the apartment. Cora sounded very motherly. "Cherry, I was wrong last time at the hospital. I've prepared a table full of your favorite dishes. Come home for a visit." Cynthia poked her head out from the kitchen. "Cherry, don't go. She's just Carl's lapdog. Still lovesick at her age. There's no saving her." Cherry replied coolly, "I don't have time." She was about to hang up when Cora said, "Cherry, when you were born, your father buried a bottle of daughter's reed for you to drink when you grew up. I dug it out. Come home." Cherry's long, delicate fingers trembled slightly. Cora knew exactly how to push her button. Cherry arrived at the Kai family villa, but neither Carl nor Celeste was home. Cora had really prepared a feast, and on the table sat that bottle of daughter's red. The words daughter's red were handwritten by her father, somewhat clumsily, as he didn't have a high level of education but built everything from scratch. Unlike Carl, who had been a university student by that time, Cherry's pale fingers gently brushed over the words. She once had a happy childhood. Her father loved little Cherry the most, Cora was in a good mood today, her face radiating vitality and joy. She opened the bottle of daughter's read and poured 2 cups. One for herself and one for Cherry. Cherry. Let's tempt. Cherry looked at Cora and asked coldly, "How did my dad really die?" This question made Cora's hand tremble, nearly spilling the wine. Her gaze flickered. "Cherry, your dad just died of illness. I've told you. You wouldn't understand. You're not a doctor." Cherry sneered and downed a cup of wine. She would find out how her father died. Placing the empty cup down, Cherry said, "I've something to attend to. I'll be leaving now." Just as she stood to leave, Cameron appeared, walking over. Cherry frowned. Cameron, now middle-aged and looking cultured, scanned Cherry from head to toe with a lecherous grin. Cora set down her drink. "Cherry, this is Director Cameron from the Western Medicine Hospital. He knows Dr. C and can ask her to treat Celeste." Cherry looked at Cameron. "He knows Dr. C? So what?" Cora tore away the facade of a loving mother. "Cherry, sleep with Director Cameron once, and then Celeste will be saved." To save Celeste, her mother actually wanted her to sleep with a man? So this was the real reason Cora had called her back. At that moment, Cherry felt her body grow weak. So hot. Something was off. Cherry looked at the bottle of daughter's red. What else was her mother capable of? Cherry's clear, pale eyes slowly filled with a rosy hue as she looked at Cora, filled with disappointment. She didn't understand what she had done wrong or why she was never loved. Cora avoided her again, turning to Cameron. "Director Cameron." Cameron eagerly rubbed his hands together and lunged at Cherry. "Little woman. You look so divine. Let me see how odd you can get in bed." Cora left. As soon as Cora was gone, Cameron collapsed to the floor, knocked out by the herbal medicine. Cherry's cheeks burned like fire. A drug Cora had given her was potent. She reached for her waist to pull out her silver needles, but her waist was empty. Oh no. The silver needles were left in the villa. Cherry hurried back to the villa as fast as she could. Since she moved out with her suitcase, she hadn't returned. She entered the master bedroom looking for silver needles but couldn't find them. Cherry didn't drink alcohol often, but the effects of the sweet rice wine were now kicking in, making her head feel a bit dizzy. The rationality she had been holding on to was overwhelmed by the waves of heat surging through her body. It was so hot. At that moment, a steady sound of footsteps came from outside the door. Someone was back. "Cash?" Cherry's eyes lit up. Cash pushed the door open, and his warm, almost boneless body fell directly into her embrace. Looking down at her with his handsome eyelids lowered, he pursed his lips in displeasure and said, "Cherry, why are you back?" Cherry hadn't expected him to come home. Today, he was dressed in a fitted black suit. Just back from outside, the expensive fabric still carrying the cold air from outside. Cherry felt hot and instinctively pressed closer to him, wanting to extinguish the fire within her with his mature, cool scent. "Cash, please help me." But before she could finish her sentence, Cash pushed her away. His cold gaze fixed on her. "What's wrong?" Cherry was taken aback. She had just thought of asking Cash for help. How could he possibly help her? "I was drugged." "Drugged?" Cash furrowed his brow. This woman, who always annoyed him, really knew how to get into trouble. "Wait here." With his tall stature, Cash walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window, took out his phone from his pocket, and made a call. The melodious ringtone echoed in the room. Cash held the phone in one hand and loosened his tie with the other, the tie hanging loosely around his neck, giving him a slightly rebellious look. Cherry didn't dare to look at him. On the other end, Cade picked up the phone. "Second brother." Cash asked, "What should I do if a woman is drugged?" Cade laughed excitedly, as if he had heard some gossip. "Hey, second brother, is it Celeste who was drugged? Then just jump in and help her yourself." Cash tightened his grip on the phone. "Speak plainly," Cade replied. "If it's not Celeste, then just put her in cold water. But it's going to be uncomfortable. If she can make it through. If not, she could burst a blood vessel and die." Cash hung up and turned to Cherry. You can go take a cold shower. Cherry nodded. Okay. She quickly walked into the bathroom. Cash took off his black suit jacket. Suddenly, a shrill scream echoed from the bathroom. Cash's handsome brows furrowed in irritation. What on earth was this woman doing? He strode in. Cherry stood under the shower, her outer clothes already removed, leaving only a spaghetti-strap dress. A thin straps rested delicately on her shoulders. Her shoulders slim and glistening, pure as could be. The shower hadn't been turned on yet. Cherry touched her forehead, her eyes misty with tears, and told him in a broken voice, I hit my head. Her sudden appearance caught Cash off guard. He quickly grabbed her hand and saw that her fair forehead was indeed bruised. How can you be so clumsy? I'm not clumsy. What? Cash raised his hand and turned on the shower. Cold water sprayed out instantly, soaking Cherry completely. Her body was hot, and the cold water felt like fire and died. It's so cold. I don't want to take a cold shower. Her soft body clung to him tightly, soaking his white shirt and black pants. He could only take 2 steps back, both of them standing under the cold water. Cherry felt so hot. She's like a little fish that was about to dry out, desperately needing water. Her small hand began to wander restlessly on his narrow waist. Cash was a normal man, and his body tensed instantly as he coldly said, Cherry, where are your hands going? Cherry's sparkling eyes became misty, revealing a youthful softness. I felt six-pack abs. Cash. Cherry looked up at him from his embrace, her gaze landing on his perfect face. You're so handsome. Cash reached out, pushing Cherry against the cold wall. Behave yourself, Cherry responded. What? You're so strong. I like it. Cash turned off the shower, aiming the nozzle at her flushed face to wake her up. Cherry pushed his hand away, saying, if Celeste were the one who was drugged. Cash paused. What? Cherry's long lashes glistened with beads of water, trembling slightly. Because it's me. You want me to take a cold shower? You all don't like me. Cash noticed that her eyes were red, as if she had cried today. Just then, Cherry lunged forward and bit his exposed Adam's apple. Cash didn't expect her to do that. The throat was a man's most vulnerable and sensitive spot. When she bit down with her sharp little teeth, his elongated eyes instantly turned bloodshot, and his waist felt numb. This damned woman. Cash wrapped his arms around her waist. Her waist was soft and delicate, like a slender willow in the wind, easily breakable. It was so thin, just about 16 inches. He could measure it with his thumb and forefinger. It felt fragile. Her smooth legs and slim waist made Cash realize she was a temptress. His breath became uneven as he held her face, forcing her away. Her small, flushed face was in his palm, and he angrily squeezed her while cursing. Do you just like biting thin? Cherry had little rationality left. The combination of drunkenness and the effects of the drug tormented her, making her weak. She looked at Cash, her red-rimmed eyes misting with tears, as if she was about to cry. Cash stiffened and immediately withdrew his hand, but Cherry hugged him, wrapping her arms around his neck. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bite you. Before he could answer, she leaned in and unkissed him. Cash felt 2 flickers of red flames jump in his eyes as her moved up, pressing against his neck, leaving several red marks on his strong jawline. The little beast that had just bared its fangs now turned into a soft little cat, clinging to him and showering him with kisses. Cherry asked, have you ever been with Celeste? Cash's expression darkened. Cherry stood on her tiptoe, her glistening eyes fixated on his thin lips. Cash, I've been drugged. I'm still your missus. Who, can you help me, please? Cash's large hand gripped her waist, her porcelain-like waist making him want to hold her tighter. Just then, Cherry slowly leaned in to kiss his thin lips. Cash didn't dodge. The 2 of them drew closer, nearly kissing. Just then, a melodious ringtone sounded. Cash took out his phone from his pocket. The screen displayed the name Celeste. Celeste was calling. Seeing Celeste, Cash's reason returned. He was a mess. His clothes were half soaked, covered in marks left by the woman. His breathing still unsteady. Just moments ago, He had felt desire. He actually felt desire for Cherry. He didn't like her and attributed everything to the fact that he was also a man, unable to resist the temptation of a temptress. Here's the English translation of the text you provided. Cash pressed the button to connect the call, feeling guilty towards Celeste. The more guilty he felt, the more he cherished her, making his voice gentler than usual. Celeste. On the other end, loud heavy metal music blared, and she cheerfully replied, "Cash. I'm at the bar," Cash said firmly. "No drinking. Have your assistant order you some milk." Celeste responded, "I know. My assistant listens to you." "Cash. Come join me. I'm waiting for you." As Cash turned to leave, a small hand suddenly reached out and grabbed his shirt sleeve. He turned to see Cherry. So, her wet spaghetti strap dress clinging to her body, accentuating her delicate curves. Her eyes were red, and she pulled on him desperately, not letting him go. Cash tried to pull his sleeve away from her grip, but Cherry stubbornly held on, her eyes growing redder as she looked at him. Just as Cash opened his mouth to speak, Cherry suddenly lunged forward and hugged him, leaning close to his ear. She whispered, "Please don't go. I'm begging you." Years later, Cherry had grown up, but she still feared being abandoned. She was terrified of standing alone on a bustling street. Cash felt trapped. Celeste's voice came through the call again. "Cash, did you hear me? Hurry over." Cherry stood on her toes and gently called out, Big brother, big brother." That title belonged solely to the girl from back then. But wasn't that girl Celeste? Cash's expression changed abruptly. "Celeste, I have something urgent. I can't come." He hung up the phone and pushed Cherry against the wall, staring at her intensely. "Cherry, who are you?" Cherry wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him softly on the lips. Her soft, fragrant lips pressed against him, teasingly innocent. Cash didn't close his eyes, instead staring at her. She didn't close hers either. Her sparkling, watery eyes were fixed on him. Suddenly, Cash realized that Cherry's eyes looked very much like that girl from years ago. After a moment of kissing without any response from him, Cherry pulled back, giving up. But Cash tightened his grip around her waist and pulled her into his embrace, overwhelming her with his masculine scent. He leaned down and kissed her. At the bar, Celeste was sitting at the counter with her assistant. The assistant asked, "Celeste, isn't Cash coming tonight?" Celeste felt suspicious. During their call, Cash sounded strange, as if someone else was with him. She quickly called Cade. "Cade, are you with Cash tonight?" Cade replied, "No. Celeste, but your brother called me. It seems like a woman got drugged." Cade suddenly realized, could it be that Cherry got drugged? Cash's private life was clean. Now, it was easy to guess. Celeste's anger flared as she clenched her fist. So Cash was with Cherry. But Celeste broke into a smile. She turned to her assistant and said, "Get me a package of medicine." The assistant asked in confusion, "What kind of medicine?" Celeste smirked and teased, "Aphrodisiac." In the villa's bathroom, Cherry was kissed until her legs went weak, nearly collapsing to the floor. Cash's strong arms wrapped around her soft waist, steadying her. Just then, a notification sounded. Cash received a video call. It was from Celeste. Cash glanced at Cherry before answering the call. Celeste was sitting at the bar, a drink in front of her, and she cheerfully said, "Cash, is Cherry with you?" Cash didn't respond. Celeste then pulled out a packet of powder and poured it into her drink, finishing it in front of Cash. "Celeste, what did you just drink?" Celeste smiled brightly. "Aphrodisiac." Cherry felt a shiver run through her. She hadn't expected Celeste to drug her. Cash's handsome face darkened. At that moment, a tall, handsome man approached Celeste, flirting. "Beautiful, can I buy you a drink?" Celeste pointed to Cash on the video call and replied, "This is my boyfriend. However, if he doesn't show up in half an hour, I'll be yours tonight." The man raised his eyebrows. Cash's voice turned icy. "Celeste, what are you doing?" Celeste's face was radiant, her demeanor haughty as she said, "Cash, tonight you can only choose between me and Cherry. You can only have one woman." With that, Celeste abruptly ended the video call. Anger burned in Cash's eyes as he gripped his phone tightly, his knuckles turning white. Cash, you can only have one woman. Mom, you can only have one daughter. Similar phrases echoed in Cherry's ears like a curse, leaving her stunned. Just then, she felt a sudden loss of warmth as Cash released her and stepped outside. Cherry looked up at him as he swiftly changed out of his damp clothes into a new shirt and trousers. When Cash returned, his deep black eyes fell on her face. What's your type? Cherry didn't immediately understand his meaning. Cash continued, I'll help you find a man. Or maybe even two. Cherry felt a ringing in her ears. He actually said he'd help her find a man or two. He had already made his choice. He had unhesitatingly chosen Celeste. It felt as though a sharp blade had plunged deep into Cherry's heart, twisting and turning, tearing her apart, trembling, struggling to find her voice. Cash, I'm still. Cash, now dressed in a clean black shirt and trousers, had shed the chaotic passion from earlier. He'd reverted to his usual aloof and refined demeanor. He took something out and handed it to Cherry. This is to compensate you. Cherry looked down. It was a huge check with 8 zeros on it. A magnetic, cold voice came from above. Cherry, this is my divorce compensation for you. Let's get a divorce. Cash placed the hefty check on the sink and strode out, heading to find Celeste. Just like her mother years ago, Cherry's eyes turned red, shimmering with tears as she realized she had been abandoned once again. She desperately wanted to hold on to them, but they had given all their love to Celeste. No matter how hard she tried, it was futile. Soon, a man arrived outside. Speaking to the housekeeper, I was sent by the husband to find the wife. Where is she? The housekeeper replied. She's in the bedroom. Follow me. The housekeeper led the man over. Cherry's face drained of color, turning pale as paper. She hadn't expected Cash to be so quick, sending a man over already. How ironic. Tap tap tap. The footsteps outside drew closer and had reached the door. Cherry immediately got up and opened the window of the room. It was the second floor, and she jumped directly out of the window. She landed on the grass below, and a sharp, piercing pain shot through her ankle, ignoring her disheveled appearance. Cherry took out her phone and dialed Cynthia's number. The call connected quickly, and Cynthia's voice came through. Hello, Cherry? Why are you home so late? Where the hell have you been? Hearing Cynthia's voice, the tears that Cherry had been holding back suddenly fell.